Welcome to the Hard Truth Podcast. Today we have a special guest, Shawn Land. Actually served in the Army for, 23 years. And we're going to be hearing from him for, one of the things that I love to do is show appreciation to the veterans and our freedom that we have here. As Americans, a lot of times it's easy to forget the price that's been paid for others for us to have freedom. And so today it's an honor to have you on, Shawn Land. And, I'll read a little bit of your bio. I'm not going to read the whole thing. You have accomplished a lot. But I know, first and foremost, knowing you as a friend, something that makes you more proud than anything, a Christian and a father of two boys, Jaden and Jace, married 26 years to your high school sweetheart. Be 28 years for me, so married my high school sweetheart as well.
Congrats to both.
So absolutely. Graduated high school in 97 and enlisted in the Army immediately. I've got to stop right there. What made you, right out of high school, want to go straight into the Army?
Let's go! What up? A couple of things.
Okay.
Almost forced.
Okay.
Right. I needed to grow up.
Yep.
A little background. Some of my family had prior been in the military. My great-grandfather, World War II. My grandfather served in the Army. He actually played for the All-Army team.
Okay.
It's Globetrotters and things like that, I wouldn't say any of them had like storied careers, which I followed or anything else like that. But I think it planted a seed in the back of my mind of, just what could I do? You know what I mean? So through high school, watching some movies about helicopters and, Navy SEALs.
Boys like helicopters.
Oh, yeah, man. Just I also went into Civil Air Patrol,
Okay.
and, it was definitely on my mind that I wanted to go straight in and become a helicopter pilot.
Yeah. I mean, looking at your resume and everything you accomplished, you were selected to attend flight school as a warrant officer in 2000. Deployed multiple times, flying airplanes and helicopters in Iraq and Afghanistan from 2002 to 2018, 23 years of service, multiple air medals for action and combat, job titles, chief pilot, director of operations, Black Hawk helicopter, flying Russian Hip, King Air, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu purple belt under Jonathan Hunter. That's a great accomplishment. I know jiu-jitsu is something that's very important to you in your life. You got a jiu-jitsu shirt on right now here on YouTube. So what is, CrossFit coach 2010. We're going to get into the military, voluntary work, kids Bible study leader, mentor for building your legacy, provided one-on-one group mentoring to fatherless boys in the city of refuge. That's some impressive stuff what you did in 23 years of service, but the volunteer work, I'm going to ask you a series of questions here, but I've got to ask, I've never heard of the provided one-on-one group mentoring for fatherless boys. Tell me a little bit more about that. That's something that, I feel like society today, we don't really understand how many kids there are out there in today's world that don't have a father figure or don't have, any direction. Tell me about that program real fast.
Yeah, so like you're saying, there's a huge need for men. Mm-hmm. And not just men in your home, but to be a man outside the home.
Yep.
And to show these young boys who haven't had a father figure, who do not have that positive light in their life, what is it like to be responsible, for one? What's it like to have somebody, a man, love you and nurture you and show you how to go out into the world and act, right? And, it was just a huge calling of mine. Yeah. We had probably 15 men, a couple guys from DEA, a couple of guys we just picked up off the street. We would meet once a month. We would go to the City of Refuge, which is in Atlanta. It's right in the middle. It's a shelter for women who've been battered, abused, and things of that nature. And we would take the boys, do projects with them. We replaced roofs, all kinds of stuff, just trying to show them daily stuff as well. Like, this is our responsibility to help other people.
Right.
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 So.
Tell me about your jujitsu. And I know, I mean, those of you that's listening on podcasts and not taking a visual on YouTube of Shawn's physique, he's always concerned about what he's putting in his mouth, always staying physically active in his workouts. What would you tell? I'm a big advocate as well of fitness and nutrition, obviously. And you and I talk about that all the time. What role does fitness, what the people listening, how important would you, not next to faith, obviously that's number one, but how important do you think taking care of your personal fitness is, and being that example for your kids, being that example in society, and what does it do for you personally in order to be the best you can be on a daily basis? Because I know now you're a commercial airline pilot, but I know it's a lot of, hard on you traveling and doing the different things.
Oh, yeah.
How would you rank fitness as a priority?
Well, it's huge. I don't know if it's hard to rank, but it's your personal responsibility to maintain that. Yeah. How can you go outside and play with your kids if you're not fit? If you get winded just going outside to throw a ball with them, right? How can you help somebody else in need change a tire if you can't even bend down?
Yeah.
Or if you don't know where to get the jacks, you know what I mean? Right. So it plays into every other responsibility you have. If you don't take care of yourself, how can you take care of others? And, we'll talk about spirituality, physical, mental, but if you don't have your body, you can't do the other stuff.
Right.
So
right.
It's huge.
So I know you spent 23 years of service. Can you give us a little bit of background? Obviously, I've got your bio. I've got everything you accomplished in SERE training. We'll get into that here in a few minutes. But can you share a little bit of background on what not only led you to joining the Army, but your experiences in the Army? What in that Army experience has turned you into the man that you are today?
Wow. That's deep. All right. So I think the calling to go in the military was I wanted to be something more than just a punk kid sitting around drinking, working at a restaurant. Right. I wanted to go in and do something that I knew mattered, right? And not only that, I knew going into the military would give me responsibility. It would help, it could help me financially. And, I also get to serve my country. So I got all of that out of it. And it shaped everything in my life. Right?
Structure, discipline.
It gave me everything that I am today besides my faith. And I would say, my wife, she was huge on that. But everything else as far as, I think you have a mentality, as a kid. I think being the firstborn, we're all always hard-nosed, right. Ready to work, do it, whatever we have to do. I think I always had that. I think I'm a hard worker, but as far as everything else, it teaches you to learn to lean on others, right. Not just yourself. Right. Like you're saying, responsibility, following through with everything.
Yeah, I work with a lot of dads, and you know that, and one of the things that they struggle with is doing what they say they're going to do. If they say they're going to work out, they'll call me and say, "Man, I didn't get it in today," or what are those little bitty things. And the military, the reason I love it so much for a lot of people is it teaches you to trust yourself, because you've told yourself you're going to do something, and you continually do what you say you're going to do.
Yeah, it's just second nature.
Yeah,
it's not something you think about.
Right.
All these books that everybody reads about, we've talked about atomic habitat, right. Habits, and man, it all comes down to building that callus, right? Understanding this is what I'm going to set out to do, and it's just what I'm going to do. Right. You don't think about it; you just do it. Right. I'm going to get up. I'm going to do my quiet time. I'm going to read about this. I'm going to work out, and I'm going to support my family.
Right. Right.
It's not a question.
And I'm going to put the right fuel in my body during the day.
That's it. You just do it.
Yeah.
Now, how do you do that? You plan.
Yeah.
Right? You can't just, wake up one day and say, "Oh, I'm going to do this."
Yeah.
It's small things. It's small things that lead into big things.
Yeah.
And it's step by step. But eventually, after you do it long enough, it's just second nature.
Right.
You know, you've built that callus, you built that mental fortitude to continue to build upon yourself, and then that permeates into everything you do.
Yeah.
Right?
You know, I mean, one of the reasons for the Hard Truth podcast is for me to kind of teach that to different people and let them know, because as we talk, you know, about the society today, we pretty much have become a weak society in the whole. And you know, the calluses, I mean, there's probably a younger generation listening don't even know what calluses are. You know, I'll never forget shaking those older gentlemen's hand at church when I was growing up, and their hands just felt like sandpaper.
Yeah.
You know, there's so many calluses and different things. But you know, that's one of my really passions for this podcast, is to try to take that weaker men generation and turn them into beasts, turn them into, you know, just, I'm going to go slay the day. I'm going to go do the best I can do on a daily basis. I've got to ask this question. I know the audience is going to want to know this. What was some of your most memorable or challenging experiences during your time in the Army? Because, I mean, flying Black Hawk helicopters, all the different things going on. I mean, it's not only your life, but it's also those that you are going to protect and get out of a situation. So, spending a lot of time in Afghanistan and in Iraq, share with us some of the memorable or challenging or some things that maybe you want to share.
Yeah. So I'm going to start off with something that people probably aren't going to think about. You know, they want to hear about war and bombs and, you know, getting shot at, blown up, all that stuff. But let's talk about some statistics of being married for as long as we've been married.
Yeah.
The divorce rate has been as high as 90% in special operations.
90%.
90% versus 3% in the regular Army, right? So when you look at how much I was gone from my wife in the length of time, a year in Korea, 12, 13, 14 months in Iraq, 9 months in Afghanistan, coming back, deploying here, deploying there, being gone 2 weeks here for as a medevac pilot. I mean, probably safe to say we were apart 7+ years, right?
Man.
At the end of the day. But as far as my biggest achievement, I would say it's my marriage.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
That's awesome.
But hands down.
Yeah.
Now, I don't put that all on me.
Right.
Right? You have to have a woman who's independent, who, you know, who's loyal, and that's hard.
Right.
So.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, one of the things that we talking about right now is the work that goes into anything, and that marriage, you know, I mean, 50% of just the normal civilians are getting divorced. And I actually touched on this on a podcast. You know, a lot of people use the excuse falling out of love. And I know there's different situations for different circumstances, but in my opinion, most of it is not putting in the work.
Yeah.
You know,
because it
just
takes
like
a lot.
You had to be trained to fly that plane, you had to be trained physically, mentally. You know, that the same type of effort goes into a healthy marriage.
100%.
Yeah. But at the end of the day, you know, what more are we invested in? I mean, you know,
and here's something else, you know, all your training you do, working out, eating, all this stuff is you.
Yeah.
You can affect that. Now we're talking about another person.
Yeah.
This is an outside influence that you're having to work with to understand, you know. So I just think being able to sustain that for that long, it's my best achievement.
Right. I love it, man. Couldn't be nothing better. How did your military service impact your life and shape who you are today? I know you've already touched on this, but is there anything else that you want to add to, you know, that military, you know, lifestyle? I know you talked about the discipline, responsibility, but is there anything else that you'd like to add?
You know, it is who I am today. I am who I am today because of my service, right? Going through the experiences, becoming a leader at such a young age, which the Army or the military forces you into that, right? It gets you out of your comfort zone probably way sooner than you might be in other situations. So I think that lends itself to you growing Now, how you grow is up to you.
Right.
Not everybody becomes a great leader. Not everybody, takes that and internalizes it and makes it into something good. But if you can take those challenges and reflect and actually grow from them, yeah.
Right. All right, I got another question for you. And what are some of the misconceptions that people have about the military and that you would like to maybe clarify? And that's mainly, that question is not for people to understand military.
Yeah.
That's for people listening that really don't understand, the military's role and purpose and I mean, we don't have to get deep into politics, but I tell everyone when they ask me, my stance on Trump versus Biden, I just tell them, look, the first thing I look at is security. Who's going to secure our borders? Who's going to make sure that we're safe on a daily basis? I mean, we don't like inflation going up. We don't like all those different things, but at the end of the day, our security is the most important thing. And I don't think society really understands that. I think, a lot of times it's easy personally for people to look and say, oh, we just spend a lot of money on military. I don't know. What are some misconceptions you think that a lot of people have on military and its purposes?
I would say one of the biggest thing is how much the politics do influence the military.
Right.
How much the administration influences what we focus training on. What let me give a great example. So I joined in 1997 when Clinton was still in office, right?
Right.
We weren't getting the funding. We weren't getting the flight hours. It was to the point where we had to take our own toilet paper to work, right? So, and everything, it becomes administrative, right? Versus what you get once you enter combat. Then it's all mission focused. We're training to do an actual subset of mission, whether it be Afghanistan, Iraq. So everything's focused on that. And then you revert back now to an administrative military where we're not training as much as we should be. We're getting money taken away to support things like Ukraine and things like that. They're pushing their focus, which would be diversity, DEI, all this stuff. So it takes away from what we should actually be doing. Right. So yes, politics influence the military heavily.
And are you going to go ahead and say who you're going to vote for?
Trump.
Or you wouldn't be on this podcast.
Yeah. So I mean, it's really hard as a soldier, right? Because you go in and that's your focus.
Right.
My focus is my country, and I don't have a say in when I get deployed.
Right.
I don't have a say if I have to go to Africa and work in Djibouti and get malaria.
Right.
Right? I'm doing what I have to do because that's what I've signed up to do.
Right. That's
your
job.
That's what I have to do. Now, if it goes too far, of course, you can always say no, but
right.
I mean,
but that's what you're trained to do.
That's it.
Yep. How did you handle the transition coming out of military into normal civilian life? I know a lot of soldiers, they have a hard time, making that transition,
Yeah.
because they did something like you for 23 years. And then, I was away from my wife. I think you said at one time up to 7 years. And now, the love of my life is here. And I've got kids. I've got all these other responsibilities. Now I've got to, go into a different way of making a living. How did you make that adjustment, and what was some of maybe the difficulties or the rewards of going into civilian life?
Yeah, the biggest reward is being at home.
Right.
Yeah, 100%. I think you have to take it in small steps. One of the biggest challenges is not being with people that you would give your life for.
Right.
At all times. You know what I mean? You have a camaraderie.
Right. Your brotherhood.
A brotherhood. I've
Yeah.
deployed with these people now. I get in a jet every day with somebody new.
Right.
And it's 41st dates.
Right.
So that was a huge change. And it almost feels lonely at times.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because these people I've been with for quite a while. and we always had something to talk about, and you just have that familiarity.
Right.
And like you're saying, coming into the civilian world, flying with people who just, it's different.
Right.
So I just had to change my mindset.
Right.
And focus on other things. Yeah.
Well, and I think a lot of what you just described too, as we mentioned, I've worked with a lot of dads and a lot of people in general, but mainly dads, that they don't even have a purpose still at 35 or 45 or 50. And I think that's what you loved about the military so much. You felt like that purpose was easy identified.
Oh, sure.
But what you've done after 23 years, you come straight out of that and say, my purpose now is focused on my wife, my two boys, being the best example I can be. And I think that's the real thing, that not only coming out of military into civilian life that a lot of men struggle with, but just the men that's just in regular civilian life, the reason they're not complete, they're not happy, they're not working on their physical fitness, they're not pushing themselves on jiu-jitsu, they're not striving to be the best. Would you say that's
Yeah.
a reason why a lot of men feel kind of just lost?
So what's funny, I taught a class on purpose at building your legacy.
Okay.
Right? So you have to understand their seasons of life, and it's not always about you.
Right.
And as a man, I think that's hard sometimes.
Right.
I think that's just part of the maturation process as we grow up, though, understanding that your family comes first. So changing your purpose,
Right.
and putting it up, always, just like we talked about the physical aspect, the mental, if you don't write it down,
Right.
and question yourself and ask, what am I doing? What am I ultimately looking to the future for? Then you're just walking
Right.
to nowhere.
Going through the motions.
You're just being.
Right. Yep.
And nobody just wants to be,
Right.
right?
Right.
And the other thing that for me is super important is I feel like my sons are my legacy.
Right.
Not everything else.
Right.
Like I said, my Love Me books in the closet.
Right.
That really doesn't matter.
Right.
What matters to me is that everything I've done is in an effort to understand how to make them the best version of themselves,
Right.
Through my teaching and understanding.
Right. That's big, man. I mean, a lot of dads, they lose that, I have a kid, I have another kid, I have a wife, and they lose that understanding of being that legacy for those kids. They get into this grind of just making money and putting food on the table, and and I mean, we could have a whole nother podcast about this, man. I don't like how society today, though, they don't show the respect for the dad either. I mean, it's almost like your sitcoms, your Disney movies. I mean, everything's about making fun of a dad and, not understanding what a dad puts his, mind and his body through to be able to accomplish, putting food on the table and that type of thing. I mean, do you have any feedback on that? Do you agree with me, the way we look at as a men, as a society, and don't understand and respect and honor what they're doing?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Watch anything.
Yeah.
The man's always weak and
Yeah.
babbling and not sure, not confident, not around.
Right.
Has to come home, have a beer,
To try to
escape,
Yeah. Instead of embracing an opportunity, they just try to escape it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Instead of facing it, face on and being that selfless servant and driving on.
Right.
Yeah. It's
100%. Yeah, 100% agree. What advice would you have maybe for someone that's maybe considering the military that's listening, maybe a younger generation? I've got a big following, actually, of younger generation that's listening to the Hard Truth podcast that, maybe are looking for direction in life. And what would you give them considerations of looking at the military?
Yeah, first get educated.
Right.
Educate yourself on the different jobs you can have, how to get there, what tests you need to take, and try to figure out what interests you, right? Because even if you want to be a SEAL, right, we can look at, how hard is it to actually get through, make it. But a ton of guys get hurt,
Right.
right? So it's not always just about you. If you break your leg and can't complete and then have to be a cook the rest of your career there, right? You need to understand that. So try to find something that interests you, get educated, and then find a mentor.
Right.
You know, there's plenty of us veterans out there that mentor kids and lead them along so they can find what fits them best.
Yep, I agree with that. How about leadership? I know, on my lifestyle, everything I've done, I'm big on leadership. I mean, that's why I'm not afraid to talk about politics. Everything hinges on leadership, in my opinion. What's some, I know I've been reading through, some of your awards and different things that you've accomplished, and we'll get into that more here in a few minutes. But can you give us an example of leadership that you demonstrated when you was under pressure? I mean, I know that there's a lot of different situations. It's probably a really difficult question, but what maybe is a situation that you was under pressure, maybe whatever the situation was, but you brought it together and said this is the direction.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about how to get there.
Okay.
All right. Because to be a good leader, it can't just be about you.
Right.
Right. And not only that, you have, all right, like we've been talking about physical, always being prepared, being a good leader, you have to be ahead of everything else so that you have the time to understand what's going on. Right. And then when it really gets stressful, you have to be able to detach yourself from that instance so you can keep a calm head, whether it be if we're trying to launch a couple of helicopters, because somebody got shot down, right? Well, I can't just blast off immediately. I've got to understand where I'm going. I've got to understand my LZs. I got to understand if they're cherry or ice, right? If they're under fire, if they're not. I have to look at weather. I have to look at how much fuel I got to go back and forth. So even in life or death situations, you have to keep a calm head.
Right.
And I think, man, that, being a medevac pilot, it taught me that very quickly,
right.
which really helped me go moving forward, like what's really important, right? Because this job is life or death.
Oh yeah.
There's no other, well, if we're doing target hits or something that might be, what do I want to say? Might be close to on the level,
right.
But as far as how important that is, I don't think there's anything more, right? So even under that, understanding that I would have to say no, because I would be putting the life of my crew and another crew on the line. But yeah,
right.
that was...
Yeah, controlling your emotions, knowing the
Yes.
plan, and following the plan.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't matter if it's military or the things we talk about daily on your fitness and nutrition and being an example of a good father. I mean, it's all the same. I mean, I did a podcast yesterday talking about put it down on a piece of paper. What are some things we can do every day to become a better person? What can you do to advance your business or, grow in your profession, whatever, but you have to have a list and put it down. And know the direction that you're headed in life, just like if you're going to go get somebody, you got to know what direction it is and know the situation.
It's the same principles over and over.
Right.
Right? Just in different facets of your life.
Right.
But it works everywhere.
Yep. I'm looking at a document here from SERE School. Explain to us what that is.
So SERE School is where we, the definition is survival, escape, resistant, evade, resistance, and escape. So basically, if you go to Fort Bragg, it's a school that teaches you how to live out on the land, basically. You kill a few snakes, learn how to cook them, you desert, you learn how to do a little navigation with that, and then you learn how to get interrogated.
Right. Yeah, I'm reading a couple of the things in the document. It talked about you quite a bit in here, and it talked about, this is from one of your superior officers, I assume, that's training you. You can speak up and talk more about it. He said, I'm very proud of him as an American and a soldier. If we were ever in a prison camp together, I know he would inspire me and all the prisoners of war to do the right thing and return with honor. I mean, there's so many different things in here, but tell me a little bit about what that would mean to you after completion of reading this document. It's got to be a proud moment for yourself, because I know it's not easy. I mean, reading some of the things that how they treated you physically, mentally abuse, all those different things, and every time the superior officer just said, "Hey, man," he took it for his team. He put others first, and that's what we talk about in leadership. What does that mean? I know you're a very humble person, and that's what I love about you. You've never really bragged about all the different things you've done, but I definitely pulled this document out of you to be able to read that. But what does that mean to be able to go through school and read these 8 different comments that he has written about you, that is basically praising you at the highest of the way you handled every situation? That's still got to feel good, knowing that you completed it and you did your best.
Yeah. So I was 18 when I went through that. And at the time, I had majors, colonels, sergeant for classes, guys that have been in special forces for 12, 15 years. So it just showed me that even under the highest pressure at that age, that I was able to be a leader, even with my minimum amount of training. And it showed me I had to support my leaders. Right? That even though they might have not have been making the best decisions for me, because I was getting the crap beat out of me. So every time they made a bad decision, they hit me.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, that experience definitely influenced the rest of my career as a leader.
Right. Yeah.
Under those high stress situations, and being with others and seeing how they reacted.
Yeah.
It led me to understand who and what I wanted to be.
And you probably learned at a young age, and something that's really lacking in the teenage boys today is you probably learned that, it's not physical. I mean, we can handle so much physically. I mean, but it's mental. I mean, one of my favorite quotes is, "Conquer the mind and you can conquer the world." And so that's probably what really started your path at an early age, is knowing how to conquer the mind. Going through some of this training camp, physically, yes, you was beat up. Yes, you was sore. But wouldn't you say understanding the power of the mind and how to control the mind is what really got you through and helped you for the last 23 years of service?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't think about it that way, but definitely.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's something that's I've tried to do a good job with my boys. I mean, I don't hit them every time they talk to me. Sometimes I may want to, but that's something I've tried to do over the last 3 or 4 years is and of course when they're 2, you're not doing that.
No.
You're loving and nurturing.
Yeah.
But would you agree with me? You've got 2 boys similar to my boy's age, a little bit younger. Jace is a little bit younger, but as a father, would you give that recommendation to make your boys mentally tough?
That's why I make them work out with me.
Yeah.
Right? That's why I make them do jiu-jitsu with me. That's why I want to be there to push them.
Right.
And that's why we constantly talk about, like, even this weekend, when the boys started getting down, you have to look in.
Right.
You have to think of, push me so I can push others.
Right.
Right?
Right. Yeah, 85% humidity. My son plays lacrosse with his son on the East Coast, and I heard a lot of the moms on that one team, we won't say which team it was, complaining, oh, they need to give them water breaks. And I'm not saying you don't need a water break, but I'm saying this: it was the same temperature on that field for both teams.
For everybody.
Every kid was sweating. Every kid was gassed, but you have to dig down deep.
That's it.
And that's why I love athletics. I mean, obviously you can't go in the military when you're 14, but I think it does a good job of grooming young men and pushing them and recognizing that they can be pushed to the next level. And, one of the things I have a hard time with parents too, and I know a lot of moms probably don't like me or my reasoning behind this, but, I hear a lot of times they say, oh, they're just 14. And something I told Beckett, I said, man, 150 years ago at 14, you was already married and had kids, and you was a man.
Yeah.
I mean, you was providing for a family. You was farming, you was ranching, you was doing something. And don't you agree with me that society today don't start getting these boys prepared for life until it's too late?
It's too late. I was roofing at 14.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm sure you were working young age.
I was on a tractor or hoeing soybeans or watermelons or something, when I was 5. Started when I was young.
Boys aren't meant to be treated with kid gloves.
No.
Right? You can't build those calluses if you're constantly cuddling and coddling.
Yeah.
You have to push them.
Right.
And they respond.
Right.
They need that.
Yeah.
They really do,
Yeah.
right? They don't want you to just sit around and let them play on games and what have you.
Right.
They need to be tested.
Right.
Because if not, what's going to happen when they turn 18? You let them go somewhere.
Right.
And the first time they're stressed out, they get into a wreck. They don't know what to do, or they're being peer pressured, and you haven't taught them how to react.
Say no.
Yeah. Or just simple things, like you didn't make them cook for themselves.
Yeah.
Now all they know how to do is get ramen out.
Yeah.
That's not building a man.
No.
They don't,
They don't know how to take care of their laundry. They don't know how to do anything.
Right.
They don't know how to change the tires.
And if they don't know how to take care of themselves, how are they going to date a woman
right.
and expect to know how to treat them?
Right.
So, it starts way younger.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. That was one of my reasons for spending that many years on the ranch with the boys, is teaching them responsibilities. I'll still never forget the day, we actually, Candace and I and Pearson and Beckett, we was, feeding his cattle early every morning before school. And when you would feed, Beckett would help me feed, and Pearson would take the four-wheeler and actually go vaccinate the new calves and take care of them. And it was 72 days straight. 172 days straight of calving, feeding, before school, getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning, doing those. And I'll never forget, it was cold. It was like 0 degrees, foot of snow on the ground. And I went and woke Beckett and Pearson up, and Beckett looked at me and he said, man, do we have to feed the cows this morning? And then I said, no, Beckett. I said, here's the deal. You go tell the cows that we're not going to feed them. And if they're okay with that, then we won't have to feed them. And he looked at me and he said, okay, I'll get my clothes on. But I think teaching that at a young age is big. It's not, yes, it made me feel more warm in that bed, but get out of that bed, serve a purpose, do your work, complete the task.
Because at that point, you have something else relying on you.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very important.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, I got one more question for you. In what days or in what ways do you think civilians, the people listening, can better support and understand veterans?
I think number one is understanding history.
Okay.
Staying up to date on current events, and it's not just about sending money or giving your time is awesome, but staying educated on what's going on in the world, being connected, because I don't want the fact of my friends dying in Iraq and Afghanistan and previous wars to just go to waste.
Right.
And if people aren't staying connected with what's going on, then it will be, because we'll lose this country.
Right.
Right? So you need to be educated on what our government's doing, what it's planning on doing, the history, how we've got here. I think all that's very important. Okay. That's what I was telling my boys this weekend as we're touring D.C., right? You've got Jefferson Monument, but then I took them to the Vietnam Memorial. You have the Korean Memorial right there. Kind of hits you.
Right.
How many men and women have sacrificed for this country? Then you have people that have no idea.
Right.
They don't know how great this country is.
Right.
Right? They've never been anywhere where women still have no rights.
Right.
Kids have no rights. Kids are less important than a goat, right? So,
Yeah, I know. I've did a lot of traveling over the last 25 years, and every time my plane touches down on American soil, I am really, really happy. In my opinion, we have the best country in the world. I know I've never served in the military. I have a lot of respect for the military. I know I have an oldest son that is looking in that direction. He's kind of like you. He likes flying things. He loves the military, which I think it's a great option for him if he don't go play college baseball. But, one of the things that really bothers me, Shawn, is I'm not perfect, but at a young age, I was determined to provide for my family, to get myself in a situation where I'm gonna push myself to be the best I can be. To remove finances from being the issue, from hitting my fitness to being the best leader I can be. And one of the things that troubles me, and I don't know, obviously we didn't role play this, so this is just going to be live. I don't know if you agree with me or not. One of the things that bothers me is seeing the divorce rates, seeing the people that are struggling financially, seeing the people that are not giving it their best on a daily basis, and people, friends of yours, friends that that they know have died for our freedom, for we can have anything we want, man. I mean, it doesn't matter if someone's flipping burgers at Wendy's right now. They can become the manager of that Wendy's. They can go out and do something else, start their own business. I mean, does it not bother you, those years you spent in service of 23 years, to watch the people that is just floating through life? I mean, you and the military gave us that freedom to be the best we can be. I mean, does that not bother you, looking at people and just kind of floating through life and not giving it their best? And how would you get somebody listening to this podcast to say, guys, quit playing around with this game of life, go give it your best?
And that has to be a personal decision.
Yep.
Right? It's really hard to influence people who are comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
It's much easier once people hit rock bottom to say, oh, maybe, so don't let it get there. Right? Take a look around, reflect on yourself, seek out help, seek out mentors, and do it.
Right.
It's not that hard.
Right.
Quit staying in the comfortable.
Yeah.
Because that's really the issue.
Yeah.
Right? People get comfortable, which makes them become lazy, which makes them become apathetic. It's just a mind shift.
Yeah. Yeah, one of the things I'm big on too, I believe what you're saying, they get comfortable, enough is enough, And then the other thing I think is really big is they fall into that victim mindset. And what I mean by that is, what, my boss didn't give me a raise, it's or my wife didn't give me enough attention, or life's not fair, or whatever. And that just really frustrates me. I mean, if you would have showed up to work an hour early and stayed an hour late, I mean, there was a recent study that came out that said the average person working in corporate America only really works 3 to 4 hours a day. Mm. And that's the same type person that's complaining about not getting a raise.
Yeah.
Do you see that victim mindset being a problem in society today as well?
Oh, yeah. But it all goes back to something that I think it's hard for us to do. And I keep saying it, and that's reflect on yourself.
Yeah.
It's hard to be truthful with yourself.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's hard to, here, I'm going to make a list. Is that really truthful?
Right.
When I look at my pros and my cons, or what I want to be, is that really real?
Right.
Or am I just fooling myself?
Yeah.
So I think for me, that's one of the biggest things you have to do. You have to be truthful.
Right.
You have to be able to tell yourself you're wrong.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then, you have to listen to other people sometimes too.
Right. Right.
You can't always say,
yeah.
They just don't like me.
Right.
There's usually some half-truths even in something that's not true, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Doing a good job of self-evaluating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I think especially as a young man.
Yeah.
It's very hard.
Right. Right. It even is when you get older.
Yeah.
I went to the poll, last weekend or the weekend before, and, watching the guys walking around without no shirt. I mean, it's, I wanted to pull them aside and say, hey, do you see what you look like? I mean, what's the excuse here? I mean, do a good self-evaluation. I talk to dads all the time when they think their kids need to be playing on the all-star team. And I'm like, hey, we got to do little bit of self-evaluating here. I mean, your son has potential, but he's not there yet.
Yeah.
And all aspects of our life, we have to be really good at self-evaluating the situation. 100%. Well, Shawn, I tell you, it's been an honor today, and I cannot thank you enough, and all of our military for giving us our freedom. And that's something that, at Core V, we're doing a big sale in honor of all the veterans, and that's something that I will always do. The veterans, and not only veterans too. I think our law enforcement, they don't get
100%.
enough appreciation.
No.
I mean, I don't know if I could put a bulletproof vest on for $45,000 a year and go keep drunks and druggies off the road and all of that for our survival, to have that freedom. I mean, we are a spoiled nation.
Very.
Honestly. There's very few listening to this podcast that could not just go walk on the sidewalk at 9 o'clock tonight because they're scared of getting shot or whatever the situation. So, I know you've served for 23 years. I cannot say thank you enough from me personally as a personal friend. And I know you probably want to say thank you also to the military and the police officers and everybody that put their life on the line on a daily basis.
100%. Yeah. So, quick story. Whenever I separated from the Army in 2007, I thought I wanted to go be a police officer. I did 2 ride-alongs. Well, because they have a helicopter, so I wanted to fly that as well. And after seeing what they had to deal with in Austin 2 days straight, I said, no, I don't think that's for Shawn.
Right.
So, yeah, it's not like they're getting to deal with the best civilians around, right? Every day they're dealing with something that you and I don't have to see.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah, they're dealing with knuckleheads that don't know history.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And not only that, our firefighters,
Right.
Same thing.
Right.
Ambulance drivers, yeah. Thank you to all our men and women, Gold Star families, especially.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and I mean the spouses that put up with it. I mean, like Angela did for you, just there supporting you, being of service any way she could be. I mean it's not just the veterans or the first responders; it's the spouses that are because they have to be in agreement too.
Well, like I said, when I see a successful man, look at the woman behind him.
Yep, absolutely,
right? Pushing him forward.
Absolutely.
Because that's the hero.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. Well, Shawn, thank you very much for being on the Hard Truth Podcast. Ladies, gentlemen, guys, I encourage you to share this podcast and let freedom ring on 4th of July. Hopefully we get this podcast out for 4th of July. That was our goal. If not, then listen to the podcast, share it with your friends and family, leave a review, and understand the powerful freedom that we have here in the United States of America. And thank you, Shawn, for being a part of that and providing that freedom and giving us 23 years of your service.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Let's go!